Is everyone on? Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us and welcome to our presentation of on the updates with the County of Santa Barbara. My name is Jolie Waugh. I am the Vice President of the AIA Santa Barbara and a Senior Architect and Associate Manager of Architecture currently with RM Design Group here in Santa Barbara. So we're happy to see you all. Very happy that you could join us. For AIA members, you will receive a 1 learning unit credit and a 1 HSW for attending today. I'd like to thank our sponsors today, the AE Group, Mechanical Engineers. Thank you very much for your sponsorship. It's greatly appreciated. And now I'd like to introduce our speakers for today. We have Lisa Plowman, Director of Planning and Development with the County of Santa Barbara, and she is going to give us a long-range an update of the long-range work program with a focus on the housing element. We also have with us Craig Johnson, who is the Chief Building Official with the County of Santa Barbara, and he is going to be talking about the permit processing timelines and what's going on with the county and building and safety. So we'd also like to let you know, if you have any questions during the presentation, if you would please type them into the chat box and we will address the question at the end of the at each of Lisa's and Craig's presentation. We'll reread the question aloud and our speakers will address them. And I think that's it. So basically over to you, Lisa. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having me. And hello to everybody who's not on the, who doesn't have their camera on, and those who do. Good to see you all. I wanted to start with a bit of an update about Acela. So I know that you know we are transitioning to fully online permitting, and it is our first phase of that work is supposed to be completed this fall. And that would mean that we would have some of the smaller building permits and film permits fully online. And then as we those will be the kind of our beta projects to work out any kinks that we have as then we transition more fully into online permitting. But we have been working closely with Acela and our internal team to make that happen. It can't happen fast enough for all of us because we are still operating on a sort of this temporary transition we made to online permitting during COVID. Nobody, you know, here we are in year 3 of that. We thought it was going to last 3 months, you know, when we originally put our process together. So Craig Johnson's going to talk a little bit more about sort of what's happening with our permit processing and building when we transition to him. But I also wanted to give you guys an update on sort of what's happening with some of our long range planning projects that I think would be of interest to the AIA. We have a couple of things that will make some difference in the work that you're doing. Obviously, we have the housing element, which is sort of all hands on deck. We have a very tight deadline to meet. As you know, we received over 5,000 units of housing that the county has to accommodate. And a little over 1,000 of those are in North County and about 4,200 are in South County. And so that's a lot of new sites that we have to identify. And we are working now on coming up with potential rezone opportunities. I do want to let everybody know that the way this has to be done now with the new state guidelines and new state laws is that we are going to be giving them a very broad list of sites that would be rezoned. And then we will do environmental analysis on that. And then our decision makers will narrow it down. So I don't want anybody to be surprised by the number of sites that are on this list. We expect that the potential rezones will be released to the public in mid-September. We've been working to identify them now. And there have, if you're interested, it's important to sign up on our website to keep up to date on the housing element process. But we expect to release a draft housing element for public review in January of 2023, going to the Planning Commission in late January, and then submitting a draft at HCD in February. HCD has been quite slammed with all the housing elements. I mean, I could tell you that of the 197 jurisdictions in the SCAG region, only 7 actually were certified and approved on time, and the rest of them were not. So, I mean, they've just been up to their necks in housing elements that they need to review and provide comments on, and they're doing a lot more detailed analysis and asking for a lot more information than previous cycles. So it's just the process has gotten more complicated. We expect that we probably won't get comments back from HCD until May, and then we would revise it, the housing element, and take it to the board midsummer in 2023. So that's what we're looking at for the housing element. I wanted to let you know that we are also in the process of working on a couple other elements. We have the environmental justice element that we're working on. Zoe Carlson in our office is leading that effort. So if you're interested in that, please check out our website. You can keep up to speed on that. We have the safety element that we're updating, which we did our vulnerability assessment recently and just recently won an award from the APA on that. And then we're preparing an adaptation plan. So this is to help the county plan for climate change, right? What we need to do for hazards. So that's part of the adaptation planning. So again, if you're interested in that part of the process, please check out our long-range planning website, and you can sign up to receive information about that process. There are 2, when the board adopted the work program back in May, they gave us an expansion, and it's an expansion that allows us to hire a new supervising planner and 2 different consultants to move forward 2 projects that I think are near and dear to my heart and probably will be to yours as well. One is expanding the number of ministerial permits that the county can process. So downshifting certain types of development from land use permits to truly ministerial permits. Something like we've done with ADUs. Because the state mandate it, right? It goes straight into building, and we don't have a land use permit process. We do have planning review because we have to confirm that the code is being met. But this will be a big game changer, I think, in terms of streamlining our process for different types of projects. And there will be obviously a public outreach effort associated with that. But this has been something I think that's bothered me for 30 years. Why is it that the county, almost everything requires a land use permit, which is appealable when you can go to the city and you can get a house built without an appeal of your permit to build your house. So we are going to be looking to other agencies and looking at the types of exemptions that they have or ministerial permits that they have. But as I said, we haven't started that process yet, but there will be a robust outreach effort to get input, and I'm sure the AIA will have a lot to say when we get to that. The other expansion project is really overhauling our multifamily residential zone district, which is design residential. It was crafted in the 1980s, and it's a very suburban, old code. And we want to overhaul that and make it bring it, current with the practices and the levels of density that we actually need now to meet our housing element numbers. And then we're also going to be looking at our commercial zone districts and shopping center, may even be getting rid of shopping center because it's so old and antiquated. And I'm sure a number of you have tried to get permits through that process under that zone district, and it's been frustrating. We also want to create greater provisions for more residential development in those areas. And I don't know if those of you are tracking the legislature. There is a bill out there right now that is being considered about creating more incentives for more residential and commercial zones. So the state is moving in that direction anyway, and I think we need to be ahead of the curve so we can accommodate that. So those are two pretty exciting projects from my perspective, because those are the things that have been bothering me for a really long time as a planner, and not only trying to implement them from the county side, but trying to process them when I was in the private sector, on those types of things. Let's see. I think that's it for sort of, the key things in our long range planning efforts. But, I did want to mention too, we are going to be moving forward to utility scale solar. So that doesn't dramatically affect the AIA, but that's another effort that we're going to be looking at. So I'm happy to answer any questions sort of about those long range efforts now. If people have them, and you can put them in the chat, I can read them out. Or you can turn on your mic.
Did anyone have any questions for Lisa? We're our chance to
just a quick one, Lisa, you mentioned solar, utility scale solar. Is there any movement on wind within the county?
So we are in need of hiring somebody to help us with that. And the supervising planner that's going to oversee the 2 expansion projects is also going to oversee a consultant on utility scale solar. So I think we're hoping to get back into it in the next couple of months. We have done some work on it already, but it stalled because we pretty much had to pull the majority of our staff onto the housing element team to try and meet state deadlines.
On the housing element, are you seeing any zoning changes up for discussion, or are those mostly staying the same and opportunity sites being focused on?
When you say zoning changes, do you mean amendments to the zoning ordinance to facilitate things?
Yeah, any rethinking about density allowances?
Oh yeah,
types of things.
That's part of our, yes. And that's part of this expansion project where we're going to be overhauling design residential and increasing densities. So when you see the rezones list that comes out, you'll see that we're sort of realizing, and it's no great shock, that 20 units per acre really isn't going to get us to where we need to be with the state, in addition to it not being a very efficient use of land. So yes, we're definitely looking at those things. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
thank you, Lisa. Any other questions out there for Lisa regarding any of the items that she's been talking about? No. Okay. Well, thank you, Lisa.
Sure.
Hanging on, and hopefully, I don't know, anything will come up after, but then I'd like to move on and introduce Craig Johnson and have him give his presentation regarding updates on what's going on within permit processing and et cetera at the county, at Building and Safety.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Craig with Santa Barbara County Building Safety Division. Just a couple of quick statistics. Permit applications so far in this fiscal year 621. That continues to be about 20% up over previous years. So we've had no slowdown so far. Permits issued 444 in the current fiscal year. That's also up about 20% over previous fiscal years. Inspections completed 3,186 so far in the fiscal year. That's less than 2 months worth. So work continues to come in. We continue, unfortunately, to have delays at pretty much every step of the processing in intake, and then getting the projects into the plan check queue. And then finally, when they're all approved, getting out of the plan check queue and getting them issued. We have, just due to the volume of work, we continue to have a couple vacant positions that's also not helping. I would just give a note to everybody that we have found that the in-person appointments are much more effective than the online email / box online storage / eventually getting into Excel system. 9 to 12, make an appointment online, and then come in person 9 to 12. You can either bring paper plans, or better would be have everything on a USB. The in-person appointments are just much more effective than the online system. So I would recommend that. Lisa, the director, has approved overtime for staff. Staff are working some overtime, but the county can't require staff to work overtime. We do have some part-time help. We lost a part-time person. If any of you know of somebody that may want to work part-time, have them send me an email, and we will see what we can do to get them in to help us. We do have a little bit of funding for some additional part-time help. We also have funding for contract services. I think we have 4 contract firms on board. We're using them as much as possible, but again, sometimes they tell us they're at capacity too. I recently, over time, I've been looking at tasks that we can possibly eliminate. And I recently sent out an email to the building division staff about eliminating some things that we were doing, so that'll help a little bit. On the Excel system, as Lisa said, the first part of it is implemented, so that work on the configuration of that is continuing, but it's going slow just due to staff vacancies throughout the department. It just is what it is. We also had a little bit of a setback recently. Some of you may have known it wasn't the county's fault. Excel had a problem with their update of their system and online fee submissions. And I just saw an email from an IT staff member this morning that unfortunately that's not going to be resolved today. It might be a week or 2 before that's resolved. That's not us, that's Excel, and it is what it is. There's nothing the county can do about that. And then just one more thing that some of you may be thinking about is, you probably all know that there's a California Building Code update at the end of this year. The new codes go into effect January 1st, 2023. And I've heard some talk about it, some talk from the public and staff talk about it. And basically what I directed the building division staff to do is, due to the systems that we have in place now that aren't ideal and the delays, to just be flexible. Be very flexible in which code provisions we allow people to go with for the last part of this year, basically from now until the end of the calendar year, and then the first few months of the next calendar year, and then anything that carries over into the calendar year, so that we don't get in a situation where someone maybe sent us an email or something in this calendar year, but it doesn't get in the system until the next calendar year. And so which version of the code should it be? So I've just told all the staff to be as flexible as possible. And that's the basics in the building division, and I can try to answer any questions if possible.
Yeah, just to add to what Craig said, I mean, I think we've had a vacancy for our supervising inspector that oversees the counter and the processing of these building permits, and that's been tough. And we have had a hard time finding somebody. We're still interviewing. Our recruitment's open. So if you know of somebody that might be interested in that position, we'd be most grateful if you would direct them to Craig. So there's a question here from Cass. So
Yeah, there are a number of questions here. So the first one I think is from Jose Esparza.
yeah, so that one's, when might the requirements for LUPs be revised? And that's a ways out. So we figure it's, we probably won't get started on it for a few months. Then we'll get started on it. It's going to take a year, maybe 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, because we'll probably have to do an EI. We're going to have to do an EIR on it. but we hope to get that up and going sooner rather than later. It's tied to staffing, bringing people on. And then the next question is, so
Do you want me to read it for you?
sure.
Okay. For what type of products would the LUP process be possibly eliminated? You mentioned projects like ADUs. Can you give an example of other types? Can you see that?
Oh. No, hold on. Let me get my chat.
Okay. Pull your chat up. Yeah.
Okay. So,
It's second to the top.
okay. I don't see that. That's weird.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, say that again.
It says, for what type of products would the LUP process be possibly eliminated? You had mentioned projects like the ADUs. Can you give an example
Yeah.
of other?
Yeah, I'm, I think we're gonna look at single family homes and things of that nature. We're gonna go to our exemption list and look at other things that we may expand there. So, I'm interested in hearing what people think, but we may in the county, because we see such large single family homes, there may be a break point. Like if you're over a certain amount of square footage, you get a land use permit. If you're under a certain amount of square footage, it's ministerial. That may be something we consider, but I'm open to a lot of different options. So if you have ideas, please send them. Right now we have pools that get an LUP. We have fences of a certain height that get an LUP. I mean, there's things that we can do away with that should be much simpler. And this will allow counter staff to process those, and it'll free up the time of the development review staff and give them more time to focus on the more complex permits rather than getting bogged down in an appeal of a pool. So the next question had to do with,
It's lengthier, so I don't know if you
yeah,
I'll read it out loud, but if you want to look at it on your chat, so you can but out loud. I believe most of us were on a Zoom call about a year ago and discussed delay in processing building permits.
Yep.
The end of that call, my impression was that this issue was being remedied. However, my experience over the last year has been the permit process is extended. I have many recent examples, and I am happy to share in detail directly with John or Lisa. I understand that Building and Safety is trying its best. How best can the AIA help support Building and Safety, and should we be contacting the Board of Supervisors?
so I think what I will say to that is, and Craig, you can add on to this, is that it was bad and then it got better. And then we had some loss in staffing, and I see a Dawn shaking her head, but we have data that shows that things were moving faster. And maybe she's not shaking her head to me, but sorry to call you out, Dawn. Doesn't pay to have your camera on, does it? But we did see some improvement, but we are we've slipped back. And I don't know that contacting the board is going to make any difference. Basically, what we need to do is get Acela up and running. We really need to get out of this box system that we've got. It's not streamlined at all. And so there's a second question in here, like, are we going to have a platform similar to the city of Santa Barbara? And that's, yes, we are. I mean, that's what we're moving to. So I'm sorry. I am super sorry that you guys are experiencing these delays. And Craig has been racking his brain to figure out ways to free up more staff time to simplify things. And we've implemented a fair number of them, and we're still working on that. But we need bodies. We need bodies. So if you guys can think of people that you would recommend to us, that would be important. Getting
Do you
a
have the
seller and
budget
getting
for-
bodies are the two important things.
Do you have the budget for the bodies? I mean, that's part of my reason for the Board of Supervisors is just like, do
Well-
you guys have the resources that if you actually have people come in the door with applications, you can train them and get them up to speed?
We have vacancies. So yes, we have the money. Yeah.
Let me just add to that. No, the situation is not good. We have, as I said before, we continue to have delays at every step along the way. The only part of our processes that really are working on time is the inspections. And let me just repeat again, I really do think the in-person appointments from 9 to 12 are much more effective. Let me mention something I've mentioned again too, is that I hear from the staff here all the time. And when I hear about another crisis and I look into it, it's very, very common that the staff tell me that they had emailed somebody 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 weeks ago asking for some certain information, and they still haven't given it to the county. That happens all the time. So when a staff member says something is needed, you know, that means that nothing is happening until that piece of information comes forward. So I would really urge you to read carefully when a staff member emails you. And again, we definitely don't like the current system. Like Lisa said, the answer is the Excella Citizen Access online system, but you know, the progress on that is unfortunately very slow.
Thank you.
So is it a matter of purchasing the subscription, or I don't know how Acela works, but like, is
Oh,
it
no,
a
you have to-
matter of
if there's a-
having it, or is it
We
a
have
matter of
it.
knowing
We
how to work
have
with
it. We're transitioning to it. There's all kinds of work you have to do to build the workflows, to implement it. So it's a lot of work actually to transition to the full online platform that's cloud-based. So we have the money, we've purchased it, we're in the contract, and we're making the transition. We've made the first step in that transition already. Yeah.
Hey, I heard that the resistance was from the accounting department. Is that something where we could
So-
make some influence?
I guess what I can say to you is a cannonball went through our finance section and we lost multiple positions and we're trying to rebuild. I can't tell you, you know, as the director, watching the loss rate of employees is pretty astounding. We had, just to give you an example, in the last 3 years, we've had about a 70% turnover rate in development review, which is really painful. It's bad for everybody. It's bad for you, it's bad for your clients, it's bad for us. And it's a variety of reasons. Some of it's COVID, people deciding they want fully remote positions. I mean, when the county has been very flexible, we've allowed teleworking, but some people want to live in a different state, and that's a lot more tricky for us because we're disaster workers and there's tax implications and all kinds of things. But it's just, we've been pretty devastated during this COVID process to get in the last 3 years with staffing. And it's not just at DevRev. We've lost people in building, or like I said, our finance department had, you know, 3 or 4 big holes blown into it, which we're currently rebuilding. I did hire a new assistant director. I don't know if you all know her. Her name's Elise Dale, and she used to work for the county. And she's helping rebuild that section. But recruitments take time, and it has not been easy. It has not been easy. And I'm not here to, you know, share my woes with you, but I am just trying to explain sort of why things are the way they are. Not ideal. We understand. I totally understand your frustrations, and we're doing everything we can to fix it as quickly as we can.
Okay,
So there's
Thank
a
you.
question about in-person appointments. Julie, do you want to read that one?
sure, yes. This person says, thank you for your time. You mentioned in-person appointments being effective. Are there plans or timeline to allow CCR submittals in person? I feel like it'd be more time efficient for the county for these minor changes to not have to go through the full building review queue. And this is all from Serena.
I don't know, I guess you're talking about revisions to permits. The hours that the counter can be open is not something that I decide. And by the way, the other unfortunate part about it is when someone is found positive with the virus, unfortunately, we had to close it recently. And the other bad part of the virus is that when someone might have a relative at home that's positive, then that person has to stay out of the county offices for a period of time. Or if there's someone that's in the office that is positive, then anyone close to that person also has to work from home for a time. So it just causes a cascading effect of people being not as effective as they could be.
Hey, Craig, Serena here. Thank you so much for clarifying. I know that the accessibility at the counter is great. My question is for like small permit revisions, can we submit those again at the counter? Or does that have to be through the online submittal and then in the full building department queue? Because for little construction site changes, we used to be able to just bring those into the counter and have it, reviewed in a day or two time.
Yeah, you can, but just keep in mind that you won't necessarily have the plan check staff member right there to look at it. You'll have the office staff that will just take it in, but that's it.
So, but it can be taken in. Okay, great. That's good news. Because we used to just have to be in the full queue again in the online submittal.
Okay. Thank you, Serena. I appreciate that. Next is a question from is that Jesley or Jesse? Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. The city has been very successful in processing full permits through the Acela platform. Does the county plan to adopt a similar same use of the Acela for permit application and review? I think that's
The answer is yes. Yes.
as we're understanding what is currently under process, correct, Lisa?
Yeah.
Next from Paul. What can we do to get permit fee generation and payment automated through Acela? It currently takes 4 weeks to get from the complete file to into calculation. Sorry, into the calculate the fee into the, from the complete pile into the calculate the fee pile, then 4 weeks to generate the fee plus payment time. Thanks.
Yeah, it's what we've been saying. We need the full Acela Citizen Access online system, and that's going to be some time. But again, you might consider making an appointment and coming in person, and the staff member should be able to give you that pretty closely, right on the spot.
Okay.
So after we have cleared it with the plan checker at Wildan and they've sent it off back to the county that they're okay with everything, we should schedule a meeting with someone at the building department to find out what the fee is.
I would make an appointment at the counter. That's what I'm saying. I'm not guaranteeing that any staff in the building division can show up to that appointment, but I would make an appointment at the counter and try to get it updated with the counter staff right on the spot instead of getting into the email queue.
So
And we haven't, Craig, can you tell us where we are on our appointments? Like, have they been filled? Because we haven't seen them fill up in the past.
No, they have not been filled.
Yeah. So people aren't really availing themselves of that right now. But
so
if we started to
basically-
see a lot of them, we probably would be, compelled to potentially expand the counter hours.
Why not get rid of box.com system and just go back to counter like it used to be?
Well, because we are moving to an online system, And
But I mean, in the interim, because it sounds like the box.com isn't working and it's taking all this time, and we're hearing that going to the counter is more efficient. So
I'd have
until
to
Excel,
analyze- I'd have to analyze that to see whether or not there would be value in it. I don't want to answer you off the cuff. But I have to think about that and talk with Craig about it and see what that would do to the system. But I'm willing to consider it.
I'm an Acela believer. I think that the city has done a great job in incorporating it into their processes. And if we could have the transparency of where our plans are being reviewed and by who, we can call those people to goose them, to get them to work on our plans, resolve any issues. And it also shows financial transparency where if I submit plans within 48 hours, I have the fee due. And if a fee's due, it pops up on there and we can pay it online through Acela. And it just seems like the fact that you have Box to support Acela because you didn't activate the Acela module to upload plans, and then you have a separate mechanism with a separate email that has to be custom tailored for every job to go out with the fee, and it takes 8 weeks to do that. It seems like you're creating a lot of labor not to use the system that you actually had in place 10 years ago, Acela, but you just never fully adopted it. And then you got Box, and then you have emails, and then you have other processes internally that like defeat it. But if you could just get on board with it.
Well, that's what we're doing, Paul.
Yeah,
That's exactly what we're doing.
awesome. What do we have to do to speed it up? Just dollars? Get like an IT crew of 10 guys. Forget hiring inspectors. Get an IT crew of 10 people funded by the Board of Supervisors to slam it out and get it done.
right, this is an emergency. For
Like
all
I
of us.
said, we are moving it forward. I understand. I understand. We're doing the best we can to move the Acela process forward. Is it clear to everybody? Because I've heard the question like 3 times now. We are adopting Acela. We are in the process of doing it. We've made the first step. We expect to have some simpler building permits and film permits, that type of thing, in the fall. So that will be the full online process. We now can accept credit cards. That's something new that we didn't have. So hopefully that's helpful to you. But that, I just want to make sure everybody fully understands we are 100% on board with Acela. We're in contract with them.
That's understood, but for full mobilization, do you have an anticipated timeline of when, single family residential permits could be done, or commercial permits, something that's more expansive than just a film permit?
Yeah, no, so we do have a schedule, and I had tried to reach out to our IT staff before this meeting. And if you give me 1 minute, I'm going to look for it and see if I can locate it myself. If you can just hold on a second, that would be great. If there are any other questions that Craig.
Greg, I have a question. Are there any other, do we have to call up and make an appointment to do each discrete step of the permitting process? I mean, you call up and you get an intake, and then it takes, then you're not really intake and you're just there. And then it takes another 4 weeks or so to get on the list or get really intook. How do we know how to negotiate when to make the appointment? It's the function, okay, number one, I get that. What about the rest of all the steps, 5 or 6 different steps that there are?
Well, you can do all of the application right in person if you come in and if you have everything. Yeah, you'll be in the system that day.
that's where I'm wondering if I love that you're adopting Acela, and that's a long-term great solution. I'm just wondering in the short term, that was my suggestion. If we can get that all done in a day, that's awesome. And we can get rid of this 8-week delay. It seems like opening up more staff hours for the counter and just disregarding that box system that seems to be non-functional could be a potential solution to what I think a lot of us are struggling with right now.
Has anyone tried to contact the IT person that basically facilitated and troubleshot the city's system and say, hire them as a, you know, triple time consultant for, you know, a couple of months and slam it through. I mean, we need somebody who knows what a successful system looks like and how it operates. Not a bunch of people in an IT group that are reading the manual.
I think the issue might be a little deeper at the county in that the different departments are balkanized and they probably are resistant to all adopting the same system. I'm not just talking planning and building, those guys are down for it, but I mean roads, fire, all the other entities, there's no plug-in for those guys anywhere at the county, whereas at the city, they're forced to do it, you know? So I think that it goes beyond, it's countywide. We need them all on Acela. I have projects in spaces that have been used for commercial use. And when I go to get a TI permit, they say the fire department doesn't recognize your address. And I'll say, well, it's the only even number between these two addresses that are 6 numbers apart. What do we do? And they said, well, those aren't acceptable addresses either. So you have to submit an address request form for these 6 addresses in a shopping center that's been there since the 60s because it's not in the fire department computer. And, you know, it's just like a bunch of busy work. And it, you know, that happens when they're the last item. It comes in at the 11th hour and it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
So what I do want to say is that, and you'll be happy to hear this, Paul, that environmental health is getting a Acela. Public Works is probably going to be on Acela here shortly. I think they're still negotiating their contract. And fire is going to be using our online system. So we're trying to achieve, I mean, it's harder because some of the groups are not even in our offices and are far away, but we want to try and bring that same experience to the county to the best of our ability. And so we've been trying to bring other departments along. Some of them can use our license, like fire has used our license and transportation has used our license in the past under our previous Acela module. And that's going to continue into the future, but we're trying to bring everybody on board.
Yeah, like just think about this, Lisa. It's all beyond your walls, but let's just say you're doing a restaurant, and I do many restaurants every month. I have to run 2 sets of plans at the printer, take them to EHS, get a physical EHS stamp on the plan, then take it back to the printer and have it scanned and then submit it to the building department. Talk about like a waste of my time and a bunch of paper, where you could just buy Bluebeam for $500 and put a digital stamp with the signature on it over there, you know,
Yeah.
But you know, they don't have the budget for it or whatever. It's just like crazy because it just creates more paper, more storage, more shuffling. Something that could happen in 1 hour takes maybe 8 man-hours to accomplish on both sides of the counter, you know?
Yeah. No, I can't agree more. I can't agree more. I mean, it's not an efficient process, and it's not a process that we should be looking at in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, but long term, I don't want to just complain to you, just want to make you aware of how out of sorts it is so that we could be your ally to come up with some solutions, you know?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I don't blame you all for complaining. I really don't. It has not been a satisfactory situation.
One
Well, we
last
have-
complaint
go ahead, Paul.
about CUPs for gyms, yoga studios, and dance studios. I
Yeah.
had to file a CUP for Magnolia Center to go with F45 and pay about $14,000 fee to the planning department. And they had to pay me to do a bunch of work. And we get to the planning commission. It's so horrible because what they say is, didn't we tell you guys we don't need CUPs for gyms anymore? My
Yes.
clients left going, why did I just pay like 20, 30 grand to get a CUP plus wait 12 months while I'm paying rent for something that they're telling the planning department is not needed?
So if you heard the first part of my presentation where I talked about the expansion project, we are going to be completely overhauling and maybe even eliminating the shopping center zone district so that we don't have problems like that. Yeah, and it's funded. We're going to be doing it in the next
Great.
year and a half. We're going to, well, in the next few months, we're going to start that process, but yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, you're the perfect person, Lisa, to be in the position because you've worked on both sides of the counter. And so things that other folks wouldn't be aware of, I know that you're able to see and hopefully streamline this thing. So I have a lot of hope for the work you got to do, but it's a big task.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm always open to ideas.
Okay, so Lisa, we have just a couple other questions here, if that's okay, if I can, we have three, left, so I'd like to read them.
Yeah.
So first, just for clarity, it says, we are able to submit for building permits in person. Can we submit for land use permits in person? We can bring hard copies or USB in with drawings and an application. Those are the questions that they have.
So I always recommend you bring an electronic copy of your plans because that's the direction we're moving. And we don't want to be in a situation where we have a bunch of paper plans that we then have to scan at some point to get them on in our system. So we are going to be requiring our electronic plans no matter what.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in terms of land use permits,
They
you
want
can
to,
certainly make an appointment at the planning counter. I think the delays at the land use side are not extensive. I think you can get things through that box process pretty quickly. So, but you can certainly come into the counter, or if you have questions about something you want to submit, you can reach out to Kimberly McCarthy and ask what she thinks the most efficient process would be for you. But we aren't experiencing those kinds of delays on the land use side. But we have appointments on both sides, building and planning.
their last part of that question was just, and also that they are able to submit for building permits in person as well.
And that's what Craig said, yeah.
Okay, right.
But
Okay.
bring electronic copies.
I had good luck at the city, like just bringing my laptop and using their Wi-Fi and essentially, you know, uploading the drawings directly from my computer, but actually at the counter so that I could go right into the system. I thought that that was really beneficial. And I could see that, you know, potentially working too, so that it's all digital for you guys. But then it's kind of an in-person thing and I've got all the paperwork and stuff in front of me.
Yeah, I'm guessing the city's Wi-Fi is better than ours. Like I barely get it in my office. So we need to improve that as well. But I mean, eventually we're going to be doing what you're talking about. Definitely. Yep.
Okay, last two questions. This one from Tom, and I don't think this has been addressed, but maybe it has. Is intake the only thing that can be processed at the counter? I'm not.
Sounds like we answered that. Is like you basically, anytime you have a transition of state from one phase to another, make an appointment and try to push it forward. Is that appropriate?
Yes, but like I said, if you need a specific plan check person there or a specific inspector there, it's on you to make those arrangements to make sure that person that is there. The only people that are guaranteed to be there on those 9 to 12 hours is the office staff. So if you need something else, you got to be very specific in making that arrangement.
Okay.
Craig, can I ask you a question? Like a roofing permit? We used to do those over the counter. Is that something we're still doing? We can still do straight over the counter?
Sure.
So something
Okay.
simple like that, yeah. Okay.
And then the last question in the chat, which I actually think we might have touched on, but I will just read it aloud. Is it possible to work with the city's representative team who implemented the Acela system at the city to get hired on and work with the IT staff at the county? Can we use that part-time staff money? I know you do have funding, but
Yeah, we've been working with a consultant. We had worked with a consultant, and we have Acela, and we now are looking at potentially bringing somebody else on to do that. To help us with it, keep it moving.
okay.
And
Great.
since we have an in-house administrator, we do have in-house IT staff that are working on it. And it's not, obviously it's not some of our planning staff is involved and our building staff because they have to help build the workflows. But, we're just moving that forward and we're almost done with that, I believe. That's a heavy lift. And I think we're winding that down.
Great. Oh, well, that is all the questions we have in the chat. I don't know if anyone else,
I was just gonna ask Lisa, were you able to locate the timeline for full launch of digital permit application and review?
No, you know what? I reached out to my IT person before this meeting and I haven't heard back from them. So I'm sorry, I can try and get that information and send it over to Ashley and Tara.
Yeah, I think once you do locate the timeline, if you just send it to the AIA, they can distribute it and update everyone.
One more thing I'd like to mention, if I could.
absolutely, go ahead.
Forgot about, Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's Santa Barbara County Community Services Department that's bringing the this electrification discussion item to the board on the 30th.
Right. That's right.
If you're interested in that.
Yeah, so similar to what the city did.
Okay. Well, any other questions for Craig or Lisa?
I was curious, I see Tina Dye is on the call and maybe if she has any advice to offer in light of what you've been talking about, given that they've done that transition, would be really appreciated. Thanks, Tina.
Yeah, hi, Ellen. Hi, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tina Dye, the Chief Building Official for the city. And I did extend an offer to Lisa and Craig during this meeting that I'd be happy to meet with them and show them how our workflows are established. So maybe they won't have to go through the process of figuring everything out. But I do sympathize with your situation over there. We're also experiencing high vacancy rates and
Yeah.
our timelines are not what we would like them to be for plan review. So I think it's a trend in our profession and outside of our profession. Just like Lisa mentioned earlier, people don't seem to want to work the traditional way that they used to. So it's something we're all dealing with. So we really appreciate your understanding. And also when you're going through a conversion from system to system, it takes so much energy and time from staff away from our normal functions. So that coupled with low or high vacancy rates makes it difficult to, give our customers the quick turnarounds that they're expecting and maybe used to prior to this downfall.
Tina, so nice to meet you.
You too.
Thank you. Yeah, we're happy to chat. We really appreciate your comments. And yeah, well, are you new to Santa Barbara?
I've been with the city for almost 2 years now. 1 year,
Okay.
first year I was with BV through a contract. And then as of April of last year, was hired permanently.
Excellent. Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
I'm sure they're thrilled to have you.
And can I just put a plug in for our code adoption that's coming up? I don't know if this is an appropriate time So I'll look to AIA to let me know if I could do that.
Is anyone opposed?
No, go ahead, Tina.
Okay, thank you. So we just launched a survey. You guys should have received it, and we're just asking for feedback, input on the existing ordinance and how it reads. And if anything hasn't been working for you, or there's a code change that you would like to see and are willing to provide a code analysis, please fill out the survey. It went to the AIA, went to our recent applicants as of a year ago, and contractors board, our contractors license local, and the realtors group. And Mark, if I missed anybody, feel free to chime in. It's a really short survey. And then we intend to have a public workshop about a week after, or 2 weeks after we get all of the results.
Hey, I got a quick plug, Tina. Thanks for all your hard work. But if the building department of the city or the building department inspectors over at the county need to have SAP training, I'm a trainer, and we should coordinate it between the folks that you have that need to get some certifications for safety assessment providers and the AIA members whose cards are probably expiring soon. So we could put on one of those courses together and get everybody recertified.
Great, thanks, Paul. I think we did that. I think Andrew Stuffler, the previous building official, did that recently with some of our folks, but
Oh, great.
I'll send an email out to staff to see who needs to recertify.
Tina, when is the due date of your survey?
Mark, are you still on the call?
I am on the call.
Thank you.
The survey opened yesterday, August 24th. It goes through next Wednesday, August 31st. And if you are intending to provide any type of analysis to support your code recommendation, you get a couple extra days to 5 p.m. on Friday, on September 2nd, 5 p.m. The following, and that'll give us a little bit of time to review what's been received. And then we'll have the public workshop from noon to 2 on Wednesday, September 7th. If you go to our Bang the Table survey, I've mailed the link out to the AIA. You'll get to the site, and it has all the relevant dates there.
Thank you. Okay, well, I think, I don't know what, Lisa or Craig, if you have any closing remarks, I think that's it for our questions. And
Yeah, just again, you know, I'm sorry that we have to ask for your patience. Continue to ask for it, and we're doing what we can to try and fix the problem. And it has been quite challenging. And so thank you for not banging down my door every day. I appreciate that, because I understand why you would. And I know Craig is frustrated and wants to simplify the process too. So we have your best interest in mind and your client's best interest in mind as well.
thank you.
And Tina, really nice to meet you. We'll reach out to you and see if we can connect.
Lisa and Craig, if you think there's anything that AIA can do to assist in your efforts to make improvements, Debby and I are co-chairs of advocacy, and we'd be more than happy to, speak at public hearings or organize our members or whatever it takes to, assist you in what you're trying to do to make things better.
Super. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I do want to tell you guys though that the county is making strides. It doesn't look like it from the outside, but now we have an enterprise GIS system that we're going to be implementing throughout the county. So every department will be using the same maps. It's going to make our citizens access portal much more functional when Acela comes up and running. So it's insane that hasn't happened yet, but it is happening now. And so that's an important thing to note. And that I think that'll make your lives easier when you're dealing with different departments. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, no,
And,
thank you. Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you, Lisa.
much.
Yeah, we really appreciate you and Craig joining us for your participation and your candor. And, this is a community effort and it's great to see so many people involved and wanting to, work together on all of this. So we really appreciate it quite a bit.
Take care.
All right, take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.